Hello, year 9. We are going to go ahead and look at adding and subtracting fractions today. And in order to do that, I just want you to pay attention to the denominators. When we add and subtract fractions, all right, the denominators must be the same. So when you're first looking at a question, ask yourself, are the denominators the same? That's your first question that you want to ask. Once you decide yes they are or no they are not, you can go ahead and follow the next few steps. So if they are the same, then you can go ahead and add just the numerators. You don't change the denominators, you don't add the denominator stays the same. And then once you're done, you just always want to simplify your answer. And in order to simplify your answer, you have to find the highest common factor and divide both your numerator and denominator by that factor. Then you have your answer in simplest form, and you can leave your answer and move on to the next question. If you ask yourself, are the denominators the same? And you say, no, they are not. Now we have another set, which is following this set of directions, where we want to make sure we find an equivalent fraction to make the denominators the same. So we have to find the least common multiple in order to make our denominators the same. Once they are the same, then you can go ahead and follow all the steps that you just followed in the other column. You add your numerators, you keep your denominators the same, and then you have to simplify your answer. All right? So those steps are the same. These three are the same as these three. The only difference is this first part. Are your actual denominators the same? If not, you have to find an equivalent fraction. So let's look at a few examples. First, we're looking at, are you able to add these fractions? So first, our eye goes immediately to the denominator, and we're asking, can we actually add them the way that they are at the moment? When you look at this first example, you'll notice the denominator has a 5 and a 10. So they are not the same. So if you go back up to our flow chart, we would be following this direction. No, they are not the same. So we need to find an equivalent fraction. So the way that we do that, they've already set this up for us. They want us to use 10 as our least common multiple. So what we have to think is, what did I just multiply by my 5 in order to get 10? So what it looks like, I'm going to erase this for a moment so you can see what we're doing here. So what this looks like is I multiply this 5 by 2 in order to get 10 down here. So if I do that to the denominator, I have to also do that to the numerator. So 2 times 2, I need to have 4 as my numerator. So my final answer, let's try that again. All right, so my final answer is going to be, let's look back up on my flow chart. Now that I have my least common multiple, I need to add my numerators, keep the denominator the same, and then simplify. So I'm going to add my numerator, so I can't fit it in that box. I'm going to write it next to the box. 7 is my numerator. Keep your denominator the same, and then see if you can simplify. So do 7 and 10 have any common factors? And they do not. So that is the end of my question, and I can move on to the next one. I'm going to do the same thing for part B. They have set me up to use 8 as my common denominator because, again, we are following this no path. No, my denominators are not the same. So now I have to think, well, what did I multiply this 2 by in order to get 8? So I actually multiplied by 4 and squeeze that in there. So that means I have to multiply the numerator by 4 as well. So what I really have is 4 times 1, which is 4, but divided by 8, and then minus 3 over 8. That's a really small box. So again, I'm going to go over to the side, and I'm going to say, okay, now that I have the same denominator, I can add or subtract my numerator. So 4 minus 3 is 1, and I keep my denominator the same, and then I check, can I simplify? And 1 and 8 do not have any other common factors except for 1, so I am done with that one as well. Part C is a little bit different because I have a whole number. So I'm going to keep my whole number as 1 for the moment because I don't have another whole number in the other fraction. So that 1 can actually just hang out with us throughout the problem. When you look to the denominator, though, again, they haven't set us up on this one because they want us to do the thinking here. So I'm going to look at this 2 and the 4, and I'm going to think, what is my least common multiple? So my least common multiple is actually going to be 4 in this case. So what can I multiply my 2 by in order to get 4? So I know I'm going to have to multiply it by 2. And I'm going to do the same thing to the numerator. So 2 by 2 is going to give me the 4. Oh, yeah, let's try that one more time. 2 by 2 is going to give me 4. Okay, and then my numerator is already a 2. So now what I'm looking at is, I'm still not happy with that one. There we go, that's a little better. So now what I'm looking at is 1 2/4 plus 1/4. Notice how they kept the 1, didn't change the 1. So I'm really just looking at 2/4 plus 1/4. So again, I'm going to have a 3 in my numerator and a 4 in the denominator. And that box is so small. I'm going to come down here. 1, 3 is my numerator, and 4 is my denominator. Okay? So that is probably better to look at than this part. It's really hard to squeeze it in the box. So let's try these as well then. I'm going to go ahead and take one of these at a time, and what I would suggest is to pause and try these on your own, and then push play and see if you agree with me. So this first one, if I think back to my flow chart, are the denominators the same? And this first one, it's actually a yes. So yes, the denominators are the same. So I can actually go straight to just adding or subtracting my numerators and keeping my denominator as 8. So I don't really have to do anything to my denominator. 13 minus 3 is 10. So now the question is, can I simplify this? And I can. 10 and 8 are both divisible by 2. So I can actually divide by 2 to both the numerator and the denominator. And I can simplify to 5/4. And again, it might not be proper to leave it like that, so I can change it into a mixed number. So 5 divided by 4 is 1 whole, and then I have 1/4 left over. Let's try the same thing for the second one. Notice in this one, I have a whole number. And usually I like to change that whole number into an improper fraction, so I can. I'm going to do that on this one. So again, my denominators are the same, so I don't have to change my denominators. But I am going to go ahead and rewrite 2 2/3 as, so 2 2/3 would be 3 times 2 is 6 plus that 2. So I get 8/3 minus 1/3. So I just changed that 2 2/3 to an improper fraction. 8/3 minus 1/3, again, my denominator stays the same, and my numerator is a 7. 7 and 3 do not have any common factors, so I can't simplify, but I could rewrite it as a mixed number if I wanted to. So 3 goes into 7 2 times, and then I have 1/3 left over. For these last two, notice our denominators are not the same, so I am going to have to follow the right-hand side of this flow chart. So I need to find an equivalent fraction to make my denominators the same. So in this case, 8 does not go into 3, and 3 does not go into 8. So I need a different number that both 8 and 3 go into. So the easiest way to find my LCM, my least common multiple, is actually just to multiply your denominators. So 8 times 3 is 24. So what I could do is I could use 24 as my least common multiple, or my common denominator, which means I need to multiply 3 times 8. And remember, if we do that to the denominator, we must also multiply the numerator times 8. And that means I need to multiply this 8 times 3. And again, if I do that to the denominator, I have to also do it to the numerator. So let's see what I have so far. If I multiply accordingly, I will have 9 divided by 24 plus I will have 8 divided by 24. Now I have a common denominator, so now I can go ahead and follow my steps to add my numerator. Keep the denominator the same, it does not change. And I have 17 as my new numerator. I always want to check if 17 and 24 have a common factor. I want to reduce my fraction. 17, though, is a prime number, so I do not have any common factors, and it's not improper, so I can leave it as is. Last but not least, this one, again, I have a mixed number, so I want to switch this. So I have two improper fractions first. So first, let's change to improper. Okay, so again, we're changing from a mixed number to an improper number. So 8 times 1 makes 8, plus the 3. I have 11, and then keep my denominator the same. So 11/8 minus 4 times 1 is 4, plus the 1, so I have, oops, I have 5/4. All right, so I haven't even started subtracting yet. All I've done is change it to improper. So as I continue, I need to see if 8 and 4 have a least common multiple. And they actually do, because 4 can go into 8 if I just multiplied by 2. So I don't have to do anything to the 8 because we'll use 8 as our common denominator, but I do need to multiply the second fraction by 2. If I do that, I still have 11/8. And now I have 10/8 that I'm going to subtract from it. So 11 minus 10 gives me 1, and I'm going to keep my denominator the same. It's already simplified, and I can leave my answer as it is. So before you come back to class next time, go ahead and double check. Did you actually complete all the problems from our class today or last class? And good practice is always to go back and revise. Pick a couple questions that you could do again. Maybe you got a question in class, or maybe you just want to go over another question from class. So maybe pick one, 2, or 3 questions that you can do one more time. And then if you saw anything that was super important, or maybe something that you think you really have, you understand it, or maybe a question, go ahead and mark your notes so that you're ready to come in next class prepared. All right, see you next time.